So if you click this video, you're probably really eager to find out what I mean by the title and or thumbnail. And it really is quite simple. Due to mining of cryptocurrencies, all of the readily available new AMD, Radeon and NVIDIA GeForce cards are completely and utterly soul-destroyingly expensive right now. So if you want a fairly powerful graphics card, look no further than this GTX 980, released all the way back in 2014. What's up guys, my name is Carl and welcome to Tech Hunter. In this channel I check out a lot of PC hardware as well as other day-to-day tech to make your lives a little bit easier. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. I've done a few videos on the GTX 900 series graphics card recently. I covered the GTX 970, which is available for around £150 used in the UK. So if that's close to your budget, click the link in the description down below. I've also covered the GTX 960, which I managed to pick up for around £50, but it's available somewhere just under £100. So check the description for that video as well to see how those graphics cards compare. But now that's enough about the past and also the week. Time to look at the big boy, the big GTX 980. Let's talk about my model right here, the KFA2 Hall of Fame edition, complete with its own overclock turbo boost button, which seriously spins up the fans to take you from a quiet, subtle gaming experience to a fighter jet ready to take your PC into the stratosphere. So what specs can you expect from this specific GTX 980? Well, it's got a base clock of 1304 MHz, up from 1126 over the reference edition, and a boost clock of 1418 MHz, over 200 MHz more than the reference 980, of which has only 1216. It also packs 2048 CUDA cores, 4 gigs of VRAM at 7000 MHz, and for the sake of this video, I've not overclocked this card at all because out of the factory it has quite a healthy and pleasant overclock already. So let's take a look around this card. It's got a triple fan design with two 80mm fans and one 90mm fan to help keep things really quiet whilst gaming. I personally barely saw it get over 60 degrees under light gaming loads like CSGO and Overwatch, but it crept up to about 65 to 70 degrees whilst playing games like The Witcher 3. It doesn't have the auto stop function, so that the fans stop spinning when they're not under any load, but they're barely audible, so it doesn't really make too much difference anyway. Looking on the back of the card, it's also nice to have a nice aluminium backplate to keep things looking fresh when you get that downward view of the card. Something that I always like to see, as it gives you the impression it's a more premium product. It's a dual 8-pin card, so it clearly has a thirst for power with an 180W TDP to be exact, and it's recommended pairing this with a 500W PSU. Fairly reasonable, you have to say. The card's dimensions are sizable, measuring at 308mm in length and around 129mm in thickness. It's a fair bit longer and a fair bit wider than the reference card, but it serves its purpose. As for I/O, you get 3 display ports and 1 HDMI. Obviously all of these ports are capable of 4K 60 as well, and you can use up to 5 of them concurrently. Right now, that's enough of me of waffling on about these kind of boring things. You're here to see just how well this card performs in games, so I've got 10 games for you to see it in action in. The test bench for this graphics card is my Ryzen based system, of which you can see all the specs in the description down below. Now, roll the benchmarks. Now you've seen the games, it was always obvious as to what you could really expect, wasn't it? This card is massively factory overclocked. It's massive in size and thickness, and the FPS numbers that it produces are indeed also massive. When you spend £200 on a GPU, that's generally what you're hoping for, right? It smashes over 100 FPS at 1080p in most of the games I tried out, and imagine if you were to pair this with a high refresh rate monitor, you'd have an awesome gaming experience, especially in esports titles. I recommended the GTX 970 to be paired with a similar monitor, but this GPU could easily handle that too, and even more. In the benchmarks, it looks like it's not really outperformed the GTX 970 I tested recently, at all really, marginally if anything, but that is down to the fact that it was tested with an overclocked i7 6700K, and for gaming, the Ryzen 5 1600 I used with this card just isn't quite as good even with an overclock on it. But the 6700K was a lot more expensive than the Ryzen CPU is or ever will be, and if I'd used this 980 with a high-end Intel CPU at 1080p, the benchmarks would have been even higher. So if you've got say a 7700K or an 8600K, that kind of stuff, expect even better results. But this card only cost me £200. It's about the same price as what a GTX 1060 3GB should cost and what it costed at launch. Albeit the power draw is obviously higher and you need a larger case to house this behemoth of a GPU. Well, this one anyway. But the point is, these GTX 980s are fairly readily available around the £200 mark on all sorts of local advertisers like Facebook, for example. You probably wouldn't be able to find a more powerful card than this brand new. As a result, I have to concede that this GTX 980 is seriously a monster of a GPU. I recommend this card to anybody who's looking at building a gaming PC and isn't totally hung up on the idea that everything going into it has to be brand new, because this beast still deserves a good home. Anyway though guys, that is the end of the video. As always, if you like this kind of stuff, feel free to click that like button. If you didn't, click that dislike button as well. Leave your comments down below, let me know what you thought about today's video. If you decided my face has not offended you, please do not forget to click that subscribe button down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.